Hey guys, some stupid sketch show guy here with another prehistoric figure review. Now this prehistoric figure review is going to be the last of the Mattel figure reviews for a while, but I decided to complete the trilogy after doing the Sarcosuchus and Tarbosaurus by doing the biggest and best figure of them all, the Control and Conquer Carnotaurus. So let's get into it. So the first thing we'll be reviewing, as always, is the paint job. The paint job on this figure is honestly as good, if not better, than the Tarbosaurus. Just like the Tarbosaurus, it employs the same three-color technique, with a dark color on the top and lighter colors on the bottom. And with the colors that they've chosen, it looks way better. You start with this nice dark brown that really does help balance out the figure, this really awesome bright orange, and this gray. The gray may not be as well applied as it was on the Tarbosaurus, but the bright orange and the dark brown most definitely make up for it. And the way they all look together just looks really, really good. It honestly is a great paint job in my opinion. There's tons of nice little blotches and just nice little bits of coloring that really do help make sure that the colors don't really feel very bland or monocolored, you know? There's always bits and pieces of every color, you know? Where there's orange, there's blotches of brown, and the gray is, well, the underbelly, so it isn't really as common. With how well the colors come together and how they actually look better than the original Carnotaurus, I have to give this figure an 8 out of 10 on paint job. Next up, we have posability. And the posability on this figure is probably the best posability I have ever seen on any figure that I own. There are so many different possibilities. You can go low, you can go high, you can just do so much with this figure, honestly. And what also makes this figure's posability even better is the fact that you can actually fluctuate on how high or low you want to go. Like, as you can see from those clips before, you can go really high and you can go really low. However, it ain't just like the Tarbosaurus where there's 3 different poses. You can actually change the level of up and down that you can go. You can go about halfway like that, and you can slowly move it down. And honestly, the ability to go in between those 3 different levels of high and low is really awesome. And it's also really awesome that you can do all this without risking the figure falling, like with the Amber Collection Velociraptor. So it's the best of both worlds. It's basically the closest thing to perfect posability. And for that, I have to give the posability on this figure a 9 out of 10. Third up is articulation and action feature. The articulation on this figure, just like the other two, is actually quite limited on its own. You can move the arms around, but just like a Carnotaurus' arms, this feature is kinda useless. But that's kinda not where the articulation ends. Just like the Tarbosaurus, you can move the legs around, however they are locked in place, which helps with the posability. Now, the legs on mine are definitely very nice and loose, which helps make it so posability is quite easy and movement's really easy. As well as that, you have your swivel feet, which, I mean, you can't live without it, even if it's not that necessary. But the main selling point of this figure is most definitely its action feature. And just like the Tarbosaurus, it has basically the same action feature where you can move the tail and you can move its head. However, this time the action feature is significantly better. You can actually chomp down its mouth without any of those dumb quality control defects, and you can move the head around effortlessly. As well as that, it's really easy to move the head around. Honestly, the head is nice and loose. It's not too loose, but it's loose enough that you can do a lot with it. Same with the action feature. The jaw and chomping is quite loose, however, it does its job really, really well. And I just gotta love just how simple it is. It's just like the Sarcosuchus' action feature. It's loose, it's fun to use, and it's addictive. And for that, I give the articulation and action feature a 8.5 out of 10. Lastly, there's the detail. And the detail on this figure is not bad. Just like the Tarbosaurus, the face detail is quite nice on this figure. It may not be as good as the Tarbosaurus' face detail, but it still does its job. It has lots of different scales on the face, and, well, it looks quite nice. The one problem I really do have with the face detail is that the gray lower jaw doesn't really bring out the details nearly as well as the Tarbosaurus does. I mean, you can still see them, but, you know, it doesn't really bring them out nearly as well. And that's kind of a general thing with most of the gray. It doesn't really bring out the details that well. However, the orange does. And another great thing about the detail is that the detail doesn't really dissipate into wrinkles like the Tarbosaurus, but instead, it keeps up the scaling, but the scaling is way more subtle. And honestly, I'll take it. It may not be perfect, but you know what? Scaling all over the body is definitely something that I like on my figures. And also, like the Tarbosaurus, the foot detail is also quite nice. But unlike the Tarbosaurus, in general, most of the detail is made of small scales and some osteoderm-like bumps. And these bumps and details look really nice, especially when you have the right camera to really pick it up. However, if there's one flaw with the detail, it's this seam line right here. It's really hard to notice from this camera, however, when you have it in hand, it is way more apparent and it doesn't look good. But besides that, the detail still looks great on the body, and for that, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. So now time for my final review. The paint job is absolutely amazing, the posability is incredible, the articulation and action feature is loose but not too loose, and very smooth and very fun to play with, and the detail is surprisingly solid. So for my final rating, I give the Mattel Control and Conquer Carnotaurus a 8.25 out of 10. Now, if you've been keeping track of the ratings of all the figures in Prehistoric Figure Review, you might have realized that an 8.25 out of 10 is actually the highest rating I've ever given a figure on this series. And for that, I have to give the Control and Conquer Carnotaurus my sketchy seal of approval. I highly recommend it to anyone who loves articulated figures, and to any kid who wants to buy a dinosaur toy. It is a great figure and one of the best on the market for kids' toys. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down other figures I should review in the comments below, and see you guys next time.